Welcome in another episode of Guerilla Sports Off Ice. Meghan Angley, Jesse Montano here, and this episode is brought to you by our good friends over at Trusted American Mortgage. Go to trustedamerican.com, see how much money they can help you save today by lowering that interest rate and helping you get a better monthly payment. Again, that's trustedamerican.com. See how much money they can help you save. Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Welcome in, Jesse Montano, Meghan Angley here, Guerilla Sports Off Ice, here to talk Colorado Avalanche. Big win last night, a big weekend ahead, a huge matchup for the Avs, returning to Winnipeg this weekend. And then we are going to get in a little bit to PWHL coming to town on Sunday. I know there's a Bronco game on Sunday, Bronco playoff game, but some really exciting stuff coming to town. Meghan, we did our show from home last night because both you and I were like, I don't know how I'm feeling. So we decided to come into work the next day and sit 4 inches apart from each other. But no, I was just telling you, I got a great night's sleep last night. I'm feeling much better. Fluids, got a lot of water in my system last night. Got a good night's rest. Feeling better. You still battling through a little bit?
I feel good. I can just tell though it's not gone. The worry's still there. So more tea, more sleep. I got good sleep too though.
Hockey guy battling through over here. Meghan Angley, noted hockey guy. Well, that was a fun one last night. If you're a Colorado Avalanche fan, Avs took it to the Minnesota Wild 6-1 in a bounce back game that they really, really needed, Meghan, after a disappointing loss to start a 3-game road trip in Chicago, losing to the lowly Chicago Blackhawks. You and I talked a lot about it last night, so we don't necessarily have to spend a ton of time talking about the game last night, but a 6-1 dominant win. Now the next day, I'm sure you've rewatched a few things at least and kind of dug back into the numbers. Any other takeaways from last night that we maybe didn't get to?
Nothing new. Just a really huge response from the Colorado Avalanche after a stinker of a game against Chicago. And I think they deserve credit, which we did give them in the post game, but for being on the second leg of a back-to-back and factoring in fatigue, this didn't look like a fatigued team because of how dominant they were. And I like that the contributions came from a little bit of everywhere, and Mackenzie Blackwood continues to be such a steady presence in net. I think it's a huge factor for all of these games lately.
It has certainly been helpful, and I do just want to go back to what you were just talking about, maybe expecting them to be a little bit more of a tired group, maybe expecting them to not quite have the energy, not quite have the legs. They came out and set the tone early and said, doesn't matter if we played last night, that game was not up to our standard, and we are going to correct it right now. Don't care if you played 30 minutes last night, Kale. We need everything here tonight.
Yeah, and you look at the way the top line was leaned on pretty heavily in the Minnesota game. It demanded a lot of the top guys. So if there was any sleepiness from them in the Chicago game, they had to shake it off and sort of hold themselves accountable then in the next game.
Quickly, we are in a new little setup here, by the way, at the Guerilla Sports office studio. We've got studios popping up all over this place now. So we look, we there's a lot that happens in the primary sound stage here. So Mark, of course, made it happen. Got us on another setup for today. So that is just thought I'd mention. This is something a little bit different than what you normally see. That's what it is. Before we start talking about what a big matchup they're staring down in the Winnipeg Jets, any final thoughts from last night? For me, that's just a really nice response. I know Minnesota is depleted. No Kirill Kaprizov. You're missing your top pairing on D. You know, if you're the Wild, it was about the process of it for me that was so impressive from the Avs last night. They came out from the jump, and that game never really felt in jeopardy. I know Zach Bogosian makes it 2-1 at the end of the first period, but the way that the Avs were playing, the details were sharp. That game just never really felt like the Avs were going to let it get away from them.
They had a strong first period and they sustained it, which was the concern in the second game in a back-to-back. But what I liked is the good habits of the first period were able to carry over for the full 60. And I think that's why, despite probably being a little bit tired at times, they got the winning result. And I think it says a lot about this group.
And then you did make the point earlier, Mackenzie Blackwood's ever calming presence continues to help. I actually didn't look at where his numbers settled this morning after all the shot adjustments and everything.
Yeah.
So I will dig into that right this quick second. But a good response for the Avs.
Huge on the penalty kill, Mackenzie Blackwood. The PK has been good, but Mackenzie Blackwood on the PK has been that much better and such a difference maker. And so even a Minnesota Wild team without some of its top heavy talent, a pretty dangerous power play still. And I think that is one of the biggest standout moments in goaltending from the game last night.
960 is where his numbers settle for last night. So another good night in net for Mackenzie Blackwood. But he will be going toe-to-toe with another one of the league's very, very best in net in Connor Hellebuck. I almost said Scott Wedgwood. In Connor Hellebuck tomorrow in Winnipeg. This team at the top of the league, obviously the top of the division. This is a team that the Avs are chasing down. Boy, oh boy, would a win in Chicago have helped that case. But the Avs do sit 5 points back of the Jets. They're tied for points with the Dallas Stars, 3 points back of the Wild. You've got an opportunity here with another game against the Wild coming up in the relatively near future. Obviously, this game tomorrow against the Jets, and then another game coming up not terribly long after that, a couple games against the Stars. The Avs have a chance to make some noise here and climb back up in that Central Division, but you can't start looking at all that yet. Got to take care of stuff tomorrow in Winnipeg. The Avs just played a good game against the Jets recently. What are you thinking? What are you expecting? Thoughts on tomorrow?
Well, it's going to be a huge test because it was a 5-2 win over the Jets last, but 2 of those being empty net goals, 3 past Hellebuck is still a significant accomplishment, but it's an otherwise tight game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Winnipeg has a pride component on the line there then in how they respond to the Colorado Avalanche, similar to how the Avs responded to a losing game against Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they're going to get Winnipeg's best. The other thing is it's a top power play team in the league, and the Avs didn't take any penalties, which is great. How repeatable is that, though?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's going to be a few more challenges in this game for Colorado, especially playing at Winnipeg in their home arena with a very loud, passionate fan base. I think they should expect to get Winnipeg's best. So I'm hoping Colorado also brings their best.
I mean, this is one of those, we are at this point of the season, as we talked about earlier this season. You're in the back half. There's no more ramp up period. There's no more, we'll get them next time. Look, it's still a long season. You guys hear me say that a lot, but we are officially into the territory of, all right, well, if you can't get up for this, what game are you going to get up for? You know, talking about if you're an Avalanche player, knowing that there's a chance for you to close the gap on the Winnipeg Jets, knowing that there's this is a 4-point game. So it's a rivalry game. And as I thought, made the excellent point the last time we were gearing up for a game between the Avs and Jets, this is a double measuring stick game here for these teams. The Avs trying to measure themselves against a team that is tops in the league, and the Jets trying to measure themselves against a team that absolutely smoked them 6 months ago in the playoffs. I guess it was probably more than 6 months ago at this point. Recently in the playoffs last April. The Jets finished with the higher seed. They had home ice advantage. This was a team that a lot of people were saying, well, hey, if Connor Hellebuck can continue to play the way he did in the regular season, this is a cup contender. And the Avs came out and pushed him around. And I think the Jets are remembering that. Talked to Kelly Moore, who does an outstanding job covering the Winnipeg Jets up there in Winnipeg before the last game. And he said, look, that series laid the groundwork, set the table, one of the two, pick whichever one you'd like, set the table for the Jets for this season, that they took that series really to heart, saying, we thought we were close and we weren't anywhere near close. Every time they play the Avs this season, that's going to be in the back of their mind.
You know, I think about how with the Avs, it took them losing some painful second round exits for them to figure out what they needed in that next year after the Vegas exit to finally win the cup. And this is where I want to give Winnipeg a little bit of credit. I don't know what this team in the playoffs is going to look like this year, because I do think they're also building their scar tissue and developing some of these learning lessons. And so I think I've discounted them a little bit this year out of fear of the past. Like, they're a great regular season team, but they fell apart a little bit because they lacked maturity in the playoffs. But I think now through this point, they're building that maturity a little bit more. And so that's the other part of it. I do think the sting of the exit that the Avs delivered in these recent playoffs made them a better team. So that's something the Avs have to contend with too. And the Avs aren't the same team that played the Jets in the playoffs. You know, even Casey Middlestat isn't the same player that the Winnipeg Jets saw. And so I think that's where the Avs have a little bit to still prove to everyone around the league this season, that they're still this competitive team, that they have this core, but they have more than the core.
Right.
And that's what makes it important.
There's so many people that still refer to the Avs as top heavy. And especially with some of the injuries, particularly this year, I can understand that sentiment.
Totally.
But I remember you and I talking, on shows and stuff during the 2022 season.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, I was like, is that your...
I have no idea how this happened.
I thought that was your ringtone. I was like, all right, classical. Good for you. But all right. Wasn't her ringtone. And the phone has been sitting face down in her lap the whole time. And
so, yes. Let's just clamp down a little.
Just clamped down.
That should work.
Oh my gosh. Now all I can think of is waltzing in the dark. I can't even remember what I was trying to say.
It's actually my alarm.
Really?
No.
Oh. Winnipeg Jets building scar tissue, trying to get over that hump. I do also think a little bit of that series last year is a minor product of a terrible playoff system where it's like, hey, congratulations, you finished second in the Central Division. Here's the Avs. And it's like, okay, cool. I was talking about the Avs being top heavy. During that 2022 run, I remember you and I laughing and joking because all this national media was coming to town. Like, well, let's just see how the Avs defense does. It's like, oh, damn, you don't realize that they're elite at defending. And, coincidentally, or maybe not so coincidentally, the third period of Game 6 for them to close out and win the cup was like a defensive masterclass on how to close out a game. And I think that because of the injuries and because of the way the roster has been situated at different times this year, that thinking has started to creep back in a little bit, where people on the outside are saying, oh, this team, one-dimensional. Shut down the top guys and they got nothing. One of the things that you and I talked about a lot last night on the post game was contributions from all over the lineup: defense, depth forwards, scoring lines, power play, not power play, special teams, getting the shorthanded goal last night. And that's what I do think that come here, that now the back half of the season, Jared Bednar is going to put a big emphasis on, of sending that message to everyone. This is a complete team. It is not just the Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar show.
No, and even in the Cale Makar show, people underestimate how good he is defensively, and I'm fine with it. Let people keep thinking that he's just a point-producing machine and not also this solid defender in his own end. I'm fine if people want to mistakenly believe that. But to your point, the Avs are good defensively. And this is where I want to give Winnipeg some credit that I hadn't previously. They're pretty good in their own end too. It kind of struck me in this last game that they really stifled a lot of what Colorado usually does to create offense in great lane management. And so that's going to be another challenge for them. It's not going to come easily to them. And that's why I like kind of going in on the high note of being able to get offensive contributions throughout the lineup. Some depth scoring is important, because I do think it's not going to be easy to find goals against Winnipeg in Winnipeg.
Right. 100%. And, will you throw up that bottom comment there, Jay? This might be a touch screen that I could just reach over and do it in this fancy new setup we've got here. You don't hear me sniffling vaguely. You don't hear anything. Everyone needs to take their licks in the postseason to figure out what they need. Colorado needed it. The loss to Vegas, as you referenced earlier. Tampa sets the all-time regular season record for best record in the regular season. They get swept by Columbus. Vegas made it to the cup final. Then it took them giving away a game 7 lead and missing the playoffs altogether one season for them to figure out how to build up that scar tissue and get back there. I do think this Winnipeg Jets team is building. I really like Kyle Connor. I like Mark Scheifele. I don't love Mark Scheifele. I think he's a little bit overrated for my money. But he's a good player. I think Kyle Connor is one of the more underrated players in this league.
I agree.
Josh Morrissey is a very good defenseman. And then obviously you got Connor Hellebuck, kind of the great equalizer back there. I also think Connor Hellebuck takes these matchups with Colorado very personally after last year, because he maybe had one of the more striking quotes of the playoffs last year. Finishes that 5-game series with a goals against average above 5. Really got kind of picked apart. What did he say though? I actually felt like I was playing some of the best hockey of my career. And he was playing outstanding. The Avs were just that much better every step of the way. So I do also think that there's an element to Connor Hellebuck right now that is maybe feeling like he has something to prove.
And it's not unusual, but it's been a great year for Hellebuck and Comrie in that tandem has worked really well in Winnipeg. And so I think that just bolstered them in the goaltending position even more so going into this year. Velarde has been a welcome addition to the team after moving on from PLD. I think that he makes so much sense there. But, I see vaguely mentioned depth, and that's kind of where most of the teams that I think are good this year have the biggest question mark, Colorado included. And I think that's something Colorado's trying to prove right now, that they do have more depth than people gave them credit for. I don't think it's complete, but I think it's better than what they've been given credit for. And that's what I like about the Minnesota game.
100%. And Parker Kelly is a guy, what?
Case comment. Mark Scheifele sucks and is a huge coward who sucks and is dirty. I do think Mark Scheifele, like sometimes you hear him talked about like almost in the same realm of like a David Pasternak type player. And it's like, no, just not for me. Like, he's a big body and all that stuff, but that's a guy who has had a horrible knack for just disappearing when the Winnipeg Jets need him the most. And I think the attitude part too, like how he responds to things when it gets tough, to Kay's point, is what actually comes to mind first when I think of Scheifele, and it's maybe not the best quality.
Did he do something in the playoffs last year, or am I making that up? I feel like there was a game that like started to get out of hand and he did something kind of like nothing crazy, but something kind of silly.
Things did get contentious. I don't remember with him specifically, but I do remember things got kind of rowdy and someone's hand got stepped on. Not him.
Yeah. I don't, but I do remember now that you say that. I do remember that.
I remember things getting kind of heated. So I don't know if he was still involved in the skirmish generally.
Ooh, that AC kicked on. I can feel it. But yeah, I do. I think they're approaching this type of matchup with, we've not only does Winnipeg want the points, but we've got something to prove here that we can hang. Because look, I think anybody who's serious in this space still has the Avs as a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. One of the top teams in the league, especially given what they've been able to do this season, even with all the injuries, even with the depth taking hits at times, and despite what they were saying on the Minnesota broadcast last night, missing a lot of key players, including Sam Girard and Val Nichushkin last night. Val Nichushkin was referred to as a role player for the Colorado Avalanche. It's like, he might be better than Kirill Kaprizov. Like, he might be the best player. If he was on Minnesota's roster, he might be number one right up there with Kirill.
I love Kaprizov.
I do too. That's not even a shot at Kaprizov. That's just a ringing endorsement of how good I think Val Nichushkin is.
But it is silly to omit that because they were kind of grouping like Miles Wood,
in
terms of when they were thinking role player who's missing, and they completely omitted Val Nichushkin, Girard. Oh, the second pair defensemen. Do those matter? They definitely do. And I think it's easy to gloss over that because the Avs still have the Makar and the McKinnon in the lineup. But you're right. And the other thing, too, is when it wasn't a Val Nichushkin, it was a Jonathan Drouin. So, like, all right, great. Jonathan Drouin played. He didn't the night before. He's still not fully healthy.
Right.
It hasn't been a complete top six all year. They don't start with Lehkonen or Nichushkin. They don't really have Duran, who's played only 9 games through this point. So
still hasn't hit double digits.
I'm not getting mad at the Minnesota broadcast. They didn't know better, but it was funny to hear them talk about it. Like, oh, you want to talk about injuries?
Yeah, right. And then the chart that we showed last night, can you see, Jay, if it's actually still in
good, but injured, but good.
Media assets? No, it looks like maybe got moved for this morning, which is all good, which is the way that our process works here at the studio. So, but no, the Avs have had a lot of injuries, but have still managed to play really good hockey. And yeah, they are listed analytically as injured, but good. And really the only team in that category right
They're
now.
running away with it in terms of still getting winning results, also being severely injured, because it's insane. I don't know what the total like man games lost is at this point, but also kind of the cap hit was also used to evaluate the value impact of players that are missing, and the Avs were running away with it. Haven't checked in, but Injury Biz is a great resource.
That's
for it.
literally where I'm going right now to see.
So, as you pull it up, because we checked in earlier, and there were some teams that were kind of neck and neck, but it was because Val Nichushkin's suspension obviously didn't count.
Doesn't
as an injury,
count, correct.
In terms of key absences, that definitely was making a difference at the start of the year.
Why can't I find that? Injury, is it Biz? Viz. Maybe. Yep, sure is. Let's see if we've got Viz. Let's see if we've got an updated man games loss. And of course, my phone isn't loading. This is outstanding podcasting right now.
I can play the music again.
Yeah. We'll see if we can get this pulled up, see where the Avs are at. Oh no, there may be something going on with Injury Viz.
Oh, they blocked you. I'm just kidding.
So, big game ahead for the Avs this weekend. Any other thoughts? Anything else that you want to take away from last night? Point 2 for this weekend. We're not 100% certain on right now. Jonathan Drouin to me is the epitome of day-to-day. He might play. He might not. He's on the trip. Could be there, but maybe not. And outside of that, I'm not really expecting any major lineup changes for tomorrow. Maybe Sammy G comes back in. Sounds like that is an option. Anything else from last night or looking forward to tomorrow before we talk some PWHL?
I want to talk about Casey Middlestat again for the 1,000th time, because he gets a little bit of a line change last night in playing with OC and Kibbe temporarily. Where are you at with him? I don't think his game has completely fallen off a cliff since he tried to restart it. Gets a goal in the last Winnipeg game, and it was a very good game from the Colton and Middlestat line possession-wise. And so where does he go from here? What's next for Casey? Do you want to see him back on that line?
Well, so here's where I'm at with Casey. Can we throw this up real quick? Sorry, just before. This is the chart we were referring to. If you didn't see it last night, this takes the analytics it takes a lot of aggregated analytics on teams that are injured, teams that are missing guys versus where they are in the standings, points they have, things like that. Again, this is a mashup. You can see there at the bottom of several different analytic categories. Despite the injuries, the Avs are playing at an elite clip right now, which is the point that we were making.
And the way to the injury part of the scale is just so far away from everybody else. Really emphasizes just how much injury they've dealt with. And look at Minnesota right there.
In
the middle of the pack.
Who are dealing with a lot of injuries right now, no doubt about it. But if you listen to that Minnesota broadcast last night, you would think that there's no other team that's even had a player miss a game other than the Minnesota Wild. And it was just a little bit funny that they were having that on the night that they chose to have that conversation. It was just a little bit funny. Casey Middlestat. To me, when you say a player's game has fallen off a cliff, which isn't what you just said, that to me means that their game has gotten to a point where you can't get it back. This is, you hear people talk about that with Corey Perry. Oh, his game fell off, which means he's a different type of player now. He's a different role. He's a fourth line guy. He's whatever. To me, Casey Middlestat, it's not only that he's not playing as well as he was at the beginning of the season, but it's such a departure from what we saw to start the year, plus what we saw from him in the playoffs, plus what we saw from him when he first got to town last year. He just, I don't know if it's a mental block. I don't know if it's in his head, if he's frustrated, if there's something going on, maybe away from the rink, something family related. I don't know. But to me, Casey Middlestat, like if he came out tomorrow and had a hat trick and then went on a heater over the next 6 weeks, like I wouldn't be surprised. I think Casey Middlestat has all the ability in the world. I think he's in a system that fits really well for him. I just think that he is going through the toughest stretch of his career, and not just his NHL career. Probably at any stop along the way for Casey Middlestat. This is the most he's ever struggled, and I think it's crept into his head. By the way, have we talked about the Tage Thompson thing on the pod?
I actually don't think we did, and I was regretting it because I read something this morning, something had tagged us in Friedman talking about the reality of Tage Thompson coming to Colorado once upon a time.
Yeah.
And you have talked about it off air. I want to give Jesse some credit. This has been discussed, just not on the hot mic.
Yeah. In the move that the Avs brought in Casey Middlestat, and look, there could also be a different time that Elliot Friedman is talking about where the Avs have maybe circled back on Tage Thompson. But I had been told from my sources that when the Avs were working on the Bowen Byram for Casey Middlestat deal, that deal had maybe originally started as Bowen Byram for Tage Thompson. And that was the deal where things got started in the player that the Avs were originally targeting. And, I don't know necessarily what the exact specifics were of why that one broke down and why it eventually ended up being a 1-for-1 Casey for Bo. But when I saw that going around this morning, I was like, yeah, well, maybe this is a good opportunity for us to talk about the fact that is what I had been told last year around the deadline, was that the Avs had originally targeted a Bowen Byram for Tage Thompson deal.
Not sure if this is the right place to transition, but why I worry a little less about Casey is because I've seen more good hockey from him in Colorado than I've seen bad, going back to the deadline, starting there, going into the playoffs, and then the very start of this year for the first about 10 to 20 games. Casey Middlestat, better hockey than I have seen bad.
Yep.
I think what's tough is what people are kind of mentioning in the chat. To put it into perspective, Casey Middlestat is younger than Sam Malinsky. And we kind of give Malinsky careful treatment in how we talk about him. He's a young player. He's still figuring out the league. And in terms of NHL seasons, Casey Middlestat definitely has the NHL experience to back up why maybe we talk about him as a tier above. He has the draft pedigree, to earn that place in conversation. So it's completely fair. And he's older by a few months. They're both 26, but Casey just turned 26 in November. And so I want to give Casey some credit for being a young player who probably does have his confidence then take a hit, because he hasn't experienced this at any other point through his career so far to date, because he's very young. And being young, he carries himself very maturely, but it doesn't mean he isn't prone to doubting himself at times.
Well, and this is also, and look, maybe I'm reaching a bit here and someone would slap me with the homer tag on something like this, but like, came from Buffalo. This is his first full season with the Avs, first full season with elevated expectations, first full season where you treat every practice like a game. What was one of the first things that we heard? And it's not just Casey Middlestat. That other Buffalo Sabres players have talked about over the years when they've left Buffalo. Man, you get somewhere else and whoa, these guys skate hard at practice. Whoa, there's like commitment to winning. What? Huh? What is this? And so I do think that there is a level of it that's, hey, he's going through his first year on the grind of a Stanley Cup contender and needing to bring it every single night. I do think the call out of him being a good player, a young player, is a good one because that was part of what I liked so much about the trade.
Yes, there's upside.
Right. You didn't just go bring in, not that anybody, has a problem with Claude Giroux, but like, you didn't go bring in Claude Giroux, who's looking for a cup in the last few years of his, career. No, you brought in a guy that you think you can shape and mold and build into a long-term 2C. And I think we're seeing growing pains. And I think that's okay as long as he eventually grows out of them. I am not at the point where I'm concerned about Casey Middleton. Like, oh no, maybe he's just not, maybe this is just who he is.
We talk about the rehabilitation that can happen for players in Colorado at various stages of their hockey career, looking at Avalanche specifically. And I don't know why we should not include Casey Middlestat as part of that. And so to your point, I do think this is growing pains. I think it's adjusting to different expectation, different pressures, and trying to absorb feedback. Yes. So much of what Casey is doing, I think, is in direct response to feedback that he's getting. I just think that he's overthinking a lot of the feedback and maybe implementing it too literally, too seriously. And it's a good thing that he wants to listen and that he wants to change and make these modifications to his game. I think he's just in his head a little too much. And that's to your point where I don't want to throw the whole player away and give up on him. Because I see people ready to ship him out of Colorado. But when you have the potential for him to be a future 2C option for many years to come, because he is young, he has that upside, you have to give the rehabilitation process a little time to set in. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. And it's why I don't necessarily hate him spending a little more time with a Logan O'Connor, because Logan O'Connor does feel like a rehabilitation center for wayward hockey players. I'm not kidding. I don't think it's a coincidence that Kiviranta is having a huge difference in his year. He's a player benefiting from the Logan O'Connor Rehabilitation Center. And it's because I think we saw great Kivy in the playoffs with Wood and Colton, and the coaching staff looked at that and said, well, what made Kivy's game shine playing alongside those types of players? Enter a healthy Logan O'Connor, Kiviranta gets some time with him, and it just sharpens good parts in Kiviranta's game to become even better. I think that's what could help Casey Middlestat right now.
Well, and it's easy. Well, I guess I shouldn't say easy, but it's you can draw the line to, I just saw a comment come through, get him some steady line mates. Megan's average immune system going to be working overtime.
I'm so strong.
What's so funny about Casey, because I do think, and I'm even tempted half the time to say, he needs some stability in his line. But you and I talked about it just a week ago. His best hockey this season has come when he was constantly getting different line mates.
Cal, Richie, Kovalenko.
Right. And there's almost an element of it to me that feels like, well, shit, maybe he just needs to play with random guys and just trust his instincts. Because even when we saw him on that fourth line, I think it was the day after, or maybe it was even that night when we were talking about it. It was maybe his best game that we've seen in the last month.
And he was able to do good things while still on the fourth line, because that's the game where Val Nichushkin gets hurt, so he gets put back on the second line. But he was doing good things before that, briefly on the fourth line. And you mentioned a good shift from Middlestat in the Minnesota game specifically, and I didn't shout this out enough, but in kind of this makeshift third line role too, some good things from Casey Middlestat, reminiscent of the things that we've come to expect from him and want to see more of.
Do you want to remind you guys about our great friends at 7 Brew? 7 Brew Coffee is a one-of-a-kind drive-through and walk-up experience with a fast and friendly crew that is waiting to serve you. From rich, bold coffees to refreshing energy drinks, smoothies, teas, and more, 7 Brew has you covered. With over 20,000 flavor combinations, there's a perfect drink for everyone. At 7 Brew, they believe in cultivating kindness with every cup, and their fully customizable menu is just the beginning. Before you hit the road, power up with 7 Brew and Firestone and experience the coffee revolution. Also want to tell you guys about our good friends over at Landmark Lincoln. This segment is brought to you by Landmark Lincoln and the all-new Lincoln Corsair GT plug-in hybrid. Go to landmarklincoln.com to see the latest offers and incentives and see if you qualify for no payments for up to 90 days. Again, that's landmarklincoln.com, or just head on in and stop at the corner of Broadway and Bellevue today and see why they've been Colorado's trusted Lincoln dealer since 1911. Megan and I were lucky enough to get the invite to go down and see Landmark Lincoln up close, impersonal. I think it was like 2 weeks ago now. We put out a little video of it. Unbelievable hospitality, some beautiful vehicles. Make sure you get online, check them out, or stop in right there. I don't know if you'll be able to tell. Yeah, that works. Those are Those are super chat lights. We've got a super chat from Vaguely Sober. We are in the new setup yet, so we don't. Mark hasn't rigged it up with the flashing lights, but he will. Jesse owes it. Did I swear?
It was I didn't catch it. But
I don't even catch it now.
It was earlier though. So when he sent that, it was something Casey.
Vaguely's right. I got to put $1 in the jar. Shout out to Vaguely, $1.99. And then another one from Kay. $2 from Kay. Megan, gentle parenting. Casey is so iconic. Don't want it. Did I really? I said shit, huh? All right.
Well, you definitely did.
Yeah, just now.
Just now.
I went through this bad, and it's probably still ongoing, truthfully, phase of my life where I'd be like, oh man, shit. Someone would go, don't say that. I go, oh damn. Oh shit. And I just couldn't ever stop myself. Where was I had a job or a class or something like that where they were big on not swearing. And every time I'd get caught swearing, I would swear 3 more times, upset with myself.
I curse a lot when I'm alone, and I don't really love this side of me.
I fucking love it, Megan. Every now and then, I was involuntary. I didn't even mean to. Every now and then we'll turn the mics. All right, guys, see ya. And Megan's just running a little bit hotter than she leads on in the show. And she'll drop some F-bombs here and there. And I'm like, yes, turn the cameras back on. Let's go. Let's run this again. I love it when Megan gets a little bit fired up. Big matchup for the Avs coming this weekend. You want to see more out of Casey Middlestat. We mentioned how much we liked him in that Winnipeg series. Let's see if he can tap back into that a little bit here.
I believe in him.
There you go. Megan believes in him. That's all you need. Let's round the show out talking a little bit about matchup of the top 2 teams in the PWHL, taking it on tour, stopping at Ball Arena this Sunday at 1. How excited are you before we get into anything else?
Let's go, girls. I'm so excited.
That's great.
We've talked about how we have nerves about the turnout because of the Broncos game.
Mm-hmm. Which you couldn't have predicted that.
No.
It would fall. These games have been planned. These PWHL games have been planned for months.
But I want to encourage anybody who's
totally
sitting around on a Sunday, probably not doing anything, their Sunday reset, or they've got a case of the Sunday scaries.
Mm-hmm.
Go support women's hockey, because I think most people who listen to hockey podcasts are diehards. They are people who just love the sport of hockey. This is an event worth turning out for, that we don't know the next time that the PWHL is going to do a takeover tour and come through Denver.
Right.
So it's such a unique opportunity to get to experience women's hockey and also show support from the local hockey community, because I think it's a passionate one. I'm
going to take it a step further, and I hope this doesn't counter. Come support hockey. Come support the growth of the game. We've been very lucky. I was able to be on the road a couple times last year. We were able to go see these games up close. We were able to talk to a lot of these girls. And the number one thing that a lot of these women that we talked to last year talked about, PWHL players that we were able to talk to, was not only were they excited about last year and the initial turnout and the hype around it, but they said, I'm excited for 5 years from now, when the game has grown and there's an entire subset of young girls who are growing up playing hockey, climbing the ranks with somewhere to go now. I remember us talking to, you guys can do your own deductive reasoning. I try to keep some of the locker room conversations anonymous. We were having a conversation 2 years ago, with an Avs player whose sister was coming up through the college ranks. And the question was, well, what is she going to do after? Very good player. What's she going to do? And they were like, I don't know. She's getting her degree. She'll probably go into this. And we were like, oh, dang, she's not going to try to do this. And they said, no, she's going to try for one Olympics. If she doesn't make the Olympic roster, she's going to be done. And we were like, dang, that's such a bummer. Why? And he was like, well, there's just nowhere for them to go. That's not the case anymore. There is somewhere for them to go. So these are very good hockey players. And every year the talent is going to get better. And it's going to get better. And it's going to get better. And it's going to get better. But you got to go out and support it. And you got to make sure we, as a hockey community, have to make sure that this league is going to make it. We got consolidated down to one great women's pro league. and there's real momentum behind it, and there's real money behind it, and there's real excitement behind it. And to your point, I just want to make sure that Denver shows up, because this is a league that's looking to expand in the next, not only expand, double the size of their footprint in the next 5 to 7 years. This tour isn't just about showcasing the current team in the leagues. So that backward. Current league and the teams. These are all tests for all these markets. Mm-hmm. Where can we go? Where is there an appetite for this game, for these teams, for these players? And I know Nicole Hensley, who we absolutely love, great friend of the show, is really excited about being able to come home this weekend. I want to make sure that Denver shows out. Not just for her, even though she deserves it, even if it was just her, but for the league and show the support. Like, hey, in 5 years, you should put a team here in Denver, because there's a support for it. There's the appetite for it. But like I said, come support hockey and the growth of the game.
Did you see Poulin's Superwoman goal?
Yeah, I can't stand her.
Oh.
Just because I'm such a big supporter of the U.S. women.
That's crazy. Come support hockey? Well, hold on. There's a line in the sand here.
I'm not saying to not come support her. I'm just saying I typically don't.
I love Marie.
I don't typically root for the men's U.S. teams. I just don't really care. For years, before there was a PWHL, and hopefully someday a Colorado team, the U.S. women were my women's team. And the amount of times that Marie-Philippe Poulin has ripped their hearts out on the ice, what, I'm just supposed to stand by and be all right with that?
I think it was just a really strong reaction. I can't stand her. That's crazy.
Let's not act like you haven't been upset with other players at times on this pod, Megan.
Absolutely. Not when I'm trying to hype the women's game, though.
Again, like, to me, this is what it's about. We don't have to love every women's player. You don't love every player in the NHL, right?
No.
This is what it's about. Growing the game is
talking over women.
Oh my gosh. I'm excited to see her play in person. I've never seen Marie-Philippe Poulin in person. We got another super chat here. The lights are coming on and off. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, I didn't realize I was trying to be a villain, but look, yeah, I'm a huge supporter of the Minnesota Frost and our girl Nicole. And what, I've just got to sit here and stand for all this. Marie-Philippe Poulin beating the best player ever.
I was just talking about a cool goal, Jesse. It's not that deep.
Yes, I did see it.
Yeah, it was
Megan's actually disappointed in me.
That's awesome that there are no more tickets in the lower bowl.
What did you and I say on the show last week? I want to see that lower bowl packed.
Right.
I want to see it packed to the rim, but I want to see that lower bowl full.
No, I do too. I think what I've seen in the growth of the game just 1 year after their inauguration is, one, they expanded their games and added more to the schedule because of the early success. And the other thing is that I haven't gotten to personally experience is seeing them fill the arenas, their home arenas that they play in.
Yes.
And so that is what is personally exciting to me about having them in Denver, Colorado, is this is not their home arena.
Right.
And I've seen the turnout for the home arenas that they play in. It's big, it's competitive, and that's just what I want. I'm hopeful for in Denver that the passion for hockey will help put people in seats here in Colorado. The
game that I was lucky enough to be able to watch the whole thing was Toronto and Minnesota last year. We saw bits and pieces of Minnesota, Ottawa. And it was like an 8,000 person arena, but it was standing room only. And people were engaged in the game and people were excited. And I love it. And you know what I'm excited for, Megan? How many of these are they doing around the country? Do you know of the takeover games?
I don't remember.
It's double digits though, right? It's a lot. And Denver landed the top 2 teams in the league. Minnesota and Montreal, 1 and 2. So not only is this going to be a fun game with a lot of good players, but like there's something to play for in this game for these 2 teams. And that's one of the things that I'm most excited about is we're going to get a great game here on Sunday.
Yeah.
We're going to get a really exciting game. What's the number one thing you're looking forward to?
The reaction from the young women when Nicole Hensley had her day with the cup here. I loved the turnout of young women from the youth hockey groups here locally that came out to see her and meet her, and seeing like the young woman with her goalie stick, having it get signed by her. And so I just think it's that times 10 to have now 2 women's teams with this open practice that's happening for both groups tomorrow, where you can come and meet these women in person. I'm excited to see how this impacts the young women in attendance who can finally visualize a path through hockey past college.
Yep. What was the thing that Nicole told you on the pod that we had her on earlier this year when you sat down and interviewed her? Was there was only one time as a young girl growing up that she got to see, and I was going to say professionals, but really it was the Olympic team. They didn't have the opportunity to be professionals yet. They were the women's Olympic team, and she said that going to that game, which was at Pepsi Center at the time, was one of the key moments for her that set her on the path of like, I want to be there. I want to be like them. And again, the couple times that last year, I believe it was after every PWHL game, the home team did a meet and greet autograph signing, just out on the concourse after every game as a way of, exactly what you're talking about. And I remember the lines were long, wrapped around the concourse. And to your point, those were in markets where the teams were there. They have practices. They've been established. I'm really excited to see a PWHL game with all those players, everything that you were just talking about, but in a market that hasn't gotten to taste it yet. And I think it's going to be a really fun atmosphere. And I also just love games where, people will have their allegiances, I'm sure there's probably gonna be a lot of people rooting for Minnesota because of Nicole. Mm-hmm. But like, this is just going to be a game where everyone's going to need to come and just celebrate the game and just be excited about high level hockey being played. And I think it's going to be really fun.
I'm looking forward to not having the same type of lens that I watch the game. Like when I'm watching the Avs games from the perspective of a member of the media who covers them, I have to really key in on things, rewatch every play. But I think there's still a component of just watching as a viewer, though still being there as a representative of media, that I'm looking forward to. I think I can better appreciate both sides when I don't have that extreme vested interest in one. For sure. Have you seen a game in person? No.
The other thing, and the comment just came through, I think they've nailed it in their inaugural 18 months ish. Getting the games distributed for free on YouTube, doing the stuff like the meet and greets, like you pointed out, which I do want to make sure we are especially highlighting. We will be out at Family Sports tomorrow with both these teams covering their practices. And those are open practices at the Avs practice facility. So you can come in, watch them practice, and then there will be meet and greets for both Montreal and Minnesota after practice.
Yeah. First 50 fans in line. And having seen the turnout for Nicole Hensley, I would get there, watch the whole practice, and queue up as early as you can. And
I've just got a gut feeling that the turnout is probably going to be significant enough that they may have to extend it past 50.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure they will open that up because the timing of both happens pretty far apart. So I imagine they'll be as accommodating as possible because it is a unique opportunity to have both teams hosted here.
For sure. And there will also be a youth clinic that takes place that Minnesota will be taking part in because it is happening later in the day. Montreal will probably already be, out seeing the city and doing their exploration with their evening off after coming in and getting a hard practice in and all that stuff, team meetings, all of that. Jesse's going to throw a water bottle at Poulin. Oh my God. But no, it's going to be really exciting.
Jesse won't be able to enter Canada.
Look, she's ripped our girls' hearts out too many times. I just can't stand for this. It's gonna be, what did you think of all the branding for this year? Because everyone finally got their team names and jerseys and logos and all that. Did you like it? not like it?
No, I do like it. And Montreal and Minnesota were two that I really liked when they were first released.
Best jerseys for sure. I think we got the all jersey matchup for this one.
I agree. So yeah, I remember there were some I was like a little unsure on.
Ottawa.
The Charge. Right?
Yep.
And then the other one is the Sirens, but they leaned into it being like the siren that makes a noise and not like a creature of the ocean.
Right.
You know, that luring sailors to their death.
The Ottawa one it looks too much like the Flames.
Yeah. No, I agree. I still am not a huge fan of what Ottawa did.
Yeah.
And then I really wish Sirens leaned into Mermaid. Like,
totally.
Evil mermaid.
But you know what's hard for me on it is like, and I know you guys can't see this, but like visually, I like the colors New York chose.
Totally.
I like the way that the logo presents. But then when you look at it closer, it's like, oh, Sirens, nice. And then, you see the rest of what they did. It's like, oh, not the direction I would have taken it, but it looks very nice.
Yeah, it's not bad.
No.
It's on the doorstep of being great.
My only complaint about this weekend is I wish we got a second game. I wish they would have done 2 games.
Yeah.
But hey, these buildings are tough to find availability in. I'm just happy that they're coming here. But that's my only thing is, man, it would have been nice to see them on 2 nights because speaking of Team USA and Nicole Hensley, Maddie Rooney is the other goalie for Minnesota who won gold in the shootout for Team USA. We got a chance to talk to her last year. She's an amazing person, but another really good goaltender. And we won't have time to see everyone. And it'd have been nice to get a second game, but hey, beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah. 2 would have been awesome.
But again, make sure you guys are showing out this weekend, not just at the game on Sunday, but for the practice and the meet and greets on Saturday, so that we can get another one of these back to Denver. And then hopefully as the league looks to expand, which Megan, my people are telling me that they are looking to aggressively expand over the next handful of years. There, we got the logos in here just so you can see what we were talking about a little bit. Again, like the New York, like you got Statue of Liberty colors in there, the pop of orange. Again, don't love the way they interpreted Sirens, but I think the logo looks great. The Toronto Scepters logo looks great. Boston is maybe the other one that I would have done a little bit differently, but really the only one that I would say I don't like is the Ottawa one. And I think everyone did a great job with their jerseys and their kits. Perfect. Yes, make sure you guys are showing out as this league looks to expand and grow. Want to make sure that Colorado is in the running to get a team. Megan, final thoughts for today?
No.
Nothing. That's going to do it. We will be back at it. We've got a lot of really fun PWHL content coming from the weekend. Not all of it will be going out right away, but we've got a lot of really fun stuff planned with Minnesota, with Montreal, with all kinds of stuff. So make sure you guys are locked into Guerilla Sports. Then Megan and I will both be there. Are you going to be there tomorrow?
I think so. I'm also doing Eagle, so I'm not.
Oh, that's right.
Sure.
I forgot. Yes. Guerilla Sports will be out at practice and the meet and greet for tomorrow. And then Megan and I will both be there on Sunday. Who needs the stinking Broncos, right? We will be at Ball Arena on Sunday, taking in Minnesota, Montreal, PWHL. It's going to be a lot of fun. Get online, get those last few tickets. Lower Bowl already sold out. Make sure you grab the last few ones. She's Meghan Angley. I'm Jesse Montano. Jay just behind the camera here, making sure you guys can see us and hear us. Guerilla Sports Off Ice. We'll be back at it next week, guys. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend. Bye.